Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a minute since I have been on, and I'm very excited to bring you guys this episode. This is the Chug Life Podcast, and I am here with a friend of the pod, Nick.
Uh, yes,
We are
sir.
going to be talking about some freaky shit. We have some absolutely wild, just, ugh, it makes my skin crawl, man.
It is the exclusive episode of the Diddy Files
No,
coming
no,
to a
no,
theater near you.
no, no. That's
All right.
on.
Oh, oh,
You go to Nick's channel, you can find that.
what the fuck? Oh, no. Oh,
Yeah. All right, all right,
hold the
all
fuck
right,
on.
all right.
Hold the fuck on.
Okay,
It's
all
only
right,
on
all right.
weekends.
We bring it his back. We bring it his back. All right, Nick. What do you know about Roswell, New Mexico?
Uh, to my understanding, nothing of the news at all.
Never. You know.
No.
All right. What if I told you that there was an alien crash that happened in 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico?
Is this not Area 51?
Well, it would become Area 51.
Okay.
Yeah, that's so you do kind of know about the freaky shit that happens there.
Uh, Not really. Just like synopsis and then parodies of it through movies. If that's it.
So, here's the special thing about Nevada is that it's a salt flat. So, it is well, very flat. And this specific part that we're talking about, it is the part that is a desert. Although a lot of it is a desert, this is like a more particular kind of desert. They can actually farm these areas. I'm not so sure about the other areas, but these areas are special because of this incident that happened in 1947. But before we get to 1947, I have to kind of tell you guys all about something else that happened. And the beautiful thing about this whole event is that there was more to corroborate it throughout the years. So it doesn't really become like a standalone issue. Um, and that's where it gets freaky. Is that things that were said 50 plus years ago are now making more and more sense. And things that were vilified back then now actually have almost photographic evidence to back it up. So before we get into all of that, we kind of need to know where does this all start trailing from. And it starts in Washington. June 24th, Ken Arnold. And Ken Arnold is a pilot. He is going to an air show. And on his way, he has to pass um, Mount Rainier for a crash. And he was looking for this thing, so he's looking down, on the lower half of where he would be normally looking, and he catches a glare of an object in the sky. It's a bunch, well, 9 specifically, um, little objects flying in formation, essentially, and they're coming through and just absolutely blinding him. So he looks up, sees this. It's like, what the hell? So he asks his ATC, who's the air traffic controller. He's like, is there any aircraft around here? It's like, no, there's one miles away. And dude's kind of like, all right, looks up, it's nothing. So he just chalks it up. He's like, okay, this is whatever. Goes on about his stuff, lands, talks to the pilots. Pilot's just like, no, dude, whatever. They all fuck off. July 4th, they have another encounter with a different pilot. This time it's an airliner pilot. So a little bit more credence. You kind of have this little, just following this paper trail along here. Now, there's a lot of things to understand about Nevada. Okay? It is a site that saw for years public auditions essentially for the nuclear tests. And this is a time that they were trying to rile up all kinds of sentiment about being this nuclear armed country. We were kind of riling up towards, we're going to nuke the shit out of Soviets. We're going to just, create the sea of cobalt. And that was the plan among some of the generals for some of these wars that were cooking up. And there's this sentiment that everybody's used to this weird stuff. We've been watching these nuclear bombs go off in our backyard for the last couple years. How much weirder can it get? So keep in mind that at that point, the only thing that is really growing is the amount of people that are moving to the city. And the city's really not doing too hot because of that. There's a lot of people that don't have electricity, that don't have plumbing. It's still very wild, wild west. Couple of fun facts. New Mexico, surrounded by meth. There's a lot of meth going on there. Okay? Big thing that's going on with everybody. But keep in mind, farmers, sheriffs, most likely not going to be methed out. They have shit to do. Okay? But we're talking about just in general. There's a lot of weird shit going on there. Okay. Now, we're going to be talking about a lot of crashes. There's like some different events that happen. But there's one in this video that we're going to be talking about later on that is a newer part of this subject that's going to really help you tie in visually. And so we're going to be starting with the Wilmots. And funnily enough, this is July 2nd. So this is way previously from the July 7th date that I was previously on. Which is why I was kind of pulling it back, because I'd realized that there was some stuff that happens between the pilot. Funnily enough, this whole ordeal ends up becoming kind of like a mockery, because these people realize that they can't talk to anybody about what they're seeing, but they're kind of just like, fuck it, I kind of like have to. And the way that this happens is absolutely fucking hilarious. So this guy sees two triangular objects kissing, essentially, and they're essentially coming over his house. And this is his family. He's got three. He's got his wife, two kids. Now, an hour and a half later, radar sites are going up. These radar sites are meant to be picking up jets and all kinds of stuff that are in the air. So they go ham. Everywhere there's stuff that's going super fast, and they're tracking it, but then it just goes off the screen or it essentially explodes. And that's one of the things that ends up catching my eye out of this whole thing, is that it explodes. Because nearby, you have Mac. Mac is going to be a central story to this whole thing. He's a rancher. And he is having lightning, thunder, huge storm going on at his house. And he's like, what the fuck is going on here? And then he hears something that sounds like an explosion. Like something that is normally not characterized as lightning. So everybody's, of course, weirded out. At this point, it's late. There's some weird shit happening. But they're curious. So, big thunderstorm going on. He's seeing objects coming out of the sky. It's got this red contrail, and he's just like, what the fuck is that? It's not a plane. It's the angle is too steep. It almost looks like a meteor. Now, the event as a whole only is picked up on July 8th. And I say only because keep in mind, there is no communication that is widespread like that amongst the people. There's no telephones, there's no telegrams, there's no nothing. Okay? You're not communicating with people unless you go to the bar, unless you go to the sheriff, unless you go to the city. You got to go out there and be able to do that. So, Portland, Oregon. 3 cops saw a disc flying. And then 3 pilots in the air saw a formation of discs very similar to what Ken Arnold had seen. This is almost a week after, a week and a half, I believe. Not looking at a calendar. I'm sorry if that's not accurate, y'all. But the main thing that is pretty clear is there's some weird shit happening. A lot of people have become aware that there's some weird shit happening amongst, just the general populace. And this is on top of the fact that these folks have been seeing nukes. All right. A lot of these folks are having their own individual experiences with just really weird sounds, explosion type sounds. And keep in mind, these are test ranges, but all of those tests, generally, the public is aware of them. So it's in my mind, not even a consideration that they were bombing. So, gonna move to the idea as a whole that everybody is pretty unaware. And at this point, you could say everybody's freaked the fuck out. So they're on high alert. All of the bases that have these radar stations, these military bases, are going on high alert. And, you have a fear for people, really, to speak out about these events. That's kind of what becomes, in my opinion, also a pillar of this whole thing, is that people don't speak out when it happens, and you have kind of like an explosion of a frenzy at some point. Just because at one point, you are going to just imagine something, I would believe. You saw something really fucking freaky. It did something to your brain, man. I would assume I have yet to have my experience with the UFO. Sure, I've seen weird shit in the sky, but not anything like this stuff. So I would assume that is a form of trauma. Seeing something like that, walking through one of these fields where a crash happened, and having this kind of experience, I would believe it does something to your brain. Moving on. So this night from Corona is really where the freaky stuff happens. The crash itself happens in Corona, but it's reported to Roswell. Roswell's the county chair. That's where the sheriff is. So Corona doesn't have its own facility like that. But there's around 30 witnesses that come from these events before the 8th. Now, the 40s as a whole, it had a huge hysteria with these kind of flying saucers kind of deal. The term flying saucers comes along a lot later, but it is still within what they're doing. Kind of like in their pictures, all that things. Here's the big, also kind of like sidekick of all these weird things. All right. World War II is getting wrapped up. All right. You have Operation Paperclip that is going full blown. Do you know what Operation Paperclip is, Nick?
I do not.
No way. Oh, man. Okay.
Unless it revolves the old Windows Clippy avatar in the
No.
bottom of the corner. They gave you information. That's the only thing I got you on that.
Huh. That's very interesting. But no, actually, Operation Paperclip deserves its own episode, absolutely. But it essentially did really weird stuff with a really weird German that liked rockets, and he may or may not
Okay.
have been a Nazi, and they may not
Okay.
have ended up creating MK Ultra. Do you know what MK Ultra is, Nick?
I do not.
Oh my lord. All right. Well, it is the freakiest of all of the freakiest black book kind of projects. Okay. Do you
Yeah,
want to
freakier
know
than Diddy.
who was a victim of MK Ultra?
Sean Combs.
Close, but not really. I think you got it. Or you could just check out the screen. I got you, brother.
Oh, Frank Olson? What the hell?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, dude, it gets weirder. It gets weird, way weirder. What's his face? I want to say Bundy was in it.
Al?
No, Ted. Fuck.
Now,
Not Ted Bundy. It's a serial killer. I can't think of him right now. But yeah.
question for you, real quick.
Yeah.
Similar to the topic. Have you ever seen or heard about a V-22 Osprey?
Yes.
Okay. So it's around that same time that they did testing for this vehicle in the similar areas. Would you even take that into a factor at all, or be skeptical of it?
We are gonna get to the plane aspect.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm going through witnesses, and then it's gonna get so fun, dude. Yeah.
Bet,
It's gonna
bet,
get
bet, bet, bet,
freaky.
bet, bet,
I
bet.
got you. I got you. So, fun fact. All right, Nevada's fucking weird, but you knew that. All right, we're gonna move on, ladies and gentlemen. Operation Paperclip is essentially the Rocket Man operation. Okay. They are fucking around with jets. They are fucking around with propulsion. Essentially, they are trying to do everything in their power to replicate what Weird German Man was doing with the V2s and all of that stuff with the Nazis. Now, another fun fact. The only nuclear armed airstrike group was based out of Roswell. And that is the 509th. Do you want to know what those guys had just finished doing? Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Oh yeah.
Now, Roswell is also the site of Trinity. That is the first nuclear explosion. You know that whole thing if you watched Oppenheimer. Now, what does all of this mean? This is the hub for aviation. If there is creation, research and development, just brainchilds, blackjack, black book type projects. That's where it's happening. So there is credence to the but about a lot of this, but I'll save that for the end. Now, we're going to talk about another situation. Jesse Martell and Cap Cabot, the sheriff, they go to Mac's debris field. Eventually, Mac grabs his shit, grabs a bunch of it. It's like, wow, this is not a lot of shit. I'm going to shove this under a bush and just leave it there. But they end up going out. Now, these guys were quite amazed at what they saw. And they were quite perplexed with what they were looking at. Here's a random fun fact. New Mexico, or I guess we could say Roswell, really, because that's where it's coming out of, they sent out about 2 weather balloons per day. Okay, so folks were quite experienced with these. They did go down. There was quite a few situations where people saw them and they knew what they looked like. Sheriffs were quite aware of what they looked like. They were frequent, is what I'm trying to get across. So, later on, we're going to find out. Okay? This kind of irks the idea of what in the hell are you guys looking at? And eventually it crawls up. It eventually gets to an army guy who is stationed at the Air Force Base. And they come out. They have their entourage. They clean this shit up. All of that gets taken. There's a huge response to essentially make all of this go away. They wipe all of it clean. It is gone. This whole debris field, you have so much debris that it took them multiple trips in Jeeps to and from the airfield to get it off the field. And you don't have anything left to resemble that there was anything ever happened. But the witness, but the paper trail, but the reports. So the federal government's obviously interested. All of these are reported to have been sent to Wright Airfield Base. This is in Ohio. This is where all of the stuff that is foreign is tested. So this is kind of like all of the stuff that they get from the Germans or all the stuff that they get from the Soviets. They test it there. They try to reverse engineer it and apply it to our stuff. But you could also assume if some shit came out the sky, landed in your backyard, you had to send it to somebody. You probably send it to the guys that are labeled foreign aviation research. You're not going to send it to the domestic guys. You're not going to send it to the Lockheed, maybe. Well, funnily enough, the people that eventually get involved in all of this research, reportedly, is Raytheon. And they reportedly are heavily involved in this. Now, we're going to discuss the witnesses. Specifically, there's 7 people out of the 30 that actually saw debris. 2 of them were kids. All of them were threatened with their lives. and the lives of their family members if they spoke about these events. Now, only 5 of these handled the material, and essentially they basically said it looked like aluminum, but it was moldable like aluminum, but structurally sound and expandable, and it would kind of go back to how it was. No wrinkles, no nothing. Well, this has a lot of spring-off events because there's a lot of witness tales that come off from Major Martell. He has his own journey, essentially taking this stuff to write. He writes in his memoirs that he flew them himself. But there's a lot of discussion about whether he did that because he wasn't a pilot, although he claimed he was. And that's where the issues start coming in with his story, which is why I won't be including it today. Because there's a lot of holes in his story. And although there is no doubt that he was there, the events that happened after are incredibly questionable. But his storytelling of the event is credible in the cases that he's writing of his own experience outside of that transportation, I believe. I am going to say I haven't read it. I am just going to go based off of the fact that a lot of what he has said is corroborated in what we know of how they look. Now, there's a lot of questions about what happened at Roswell. Okay, and this is where we're going to get into the fun stuff, in my opinion. Okay. I want to let you guys all know why this is so special. The government said it was a balloon. They lied to everybody for years and said this is just a weather balloon. That's all it is. But eventually they copped and they said, okay, it was a super secret project called Project Mogul. It's another type of special balloon. But sure, we can all agree that if we take everything into account that we know of how they look, how they act, from the airmen videos of flying behind it or seeing it fly around them, from the Navy airmen videos seeing the same thing, to the special new Hellfire alien video, which is another thing I almost forgot it. It is absolutely fucking insane. So they send a Hellfire
I knew never.
on this fucking alien, dude. They send a Hellfire, dude, on this fucking alien, dude. No, they they fucking dropped a Hellfire on this motherfucker, bro. All right, he was just flying, chilling, having a great time. He got fucking capped, my guy. All right, we're gonna play this shit. I need to mute this motherfucker. It's not letting me do that. I'm not a fan of that. What is going on here? Damn, bro.
I think the web page is stuck.
Yeah, that bitch is frozen as fuck.
Yeah, the browser's stuck.
I got a lot
Give
open.
it a sec. Give it a sec.
It ain't looking good, Chief.
Just give it a sec. Sure.
So, fun fact, the reason why I'm saying all this shit adds up, right, is because we have the Tic Tac event, which is the small kind of like pebble, basically Tic Tac shaped UFO. And that is kind of aligning with a lot of the descriptions that came from witnesses. The triangular not really. Okay, it's my belief is that it is a saucer, or at least something that can just fucking do whatever the fuck it wants. Okay, here we go. So check this some bitch out.
9 Reaper drone tracking a glowing orb as it flies over the water. Now watch closely as a different U.S. drone.
Jeez.
Yeah, so the drone hits it with the hellfire, which is really fucking weird. Okay, it's kind of like questionable to use a guided missile like that because it's not fast enough to hit something that's moving really fast. You would use different missiles. So here's the other thing. Comes in, hits it, shit falls off. He's still going. He's still going, bro. That man chilling. He rolling. You know, it's nuts. And so that little kind of object I think it goes in line with what's been said about all the different crafts that we're seeing. And if you guys want to research this further, there's quite a lot of stuff out there about this. And you got to be careful with what you check out. So, a few pointers. Stanton Friedman. It's a good start. And in my opinion, I would just kind of hang out there. All right? If you leave the house, it's going to get wild. So you're not going to be stepping into a lot of stuff that is verifiable, in my opinion. It's a minefield. Now, there's a lot of problems in regards to Roswell, the event as a whole, because there was no evidence. All of it was taken by the feds. It's gone. Everything is witness. Second hand, third hand, fourth hand, fifth hand, sixth hand, it just keeps fucking going. All right. Everybody had their own story at some point. After this event, the craze took off. It went insane. So, one of the interesting things that I found out of my research that I kind of wanted to pass on is that reportedly Kevlar and lasers came out of this whole little thing with Roswell. I found that very interesting. Now, theories is kind of a really big pain in the ass when it comes to Roswell, because I think it's very simple to chalk it up to a crazy story. I think off the face of looking at what happened on the days leading up to the 8th, it starts to make sense. And if you look at the event as part of like a wider lead up as a whole, with the events that year itself, which saw hundreds of these different quote unquote sightings, and it just continues to skyrocket. You know, the idea, the potential idea that there's some weird shit flying in the air. We can't figure out what the fuck it is, but some of it's crashing. Okay, like if they're fucking aliens, they're really not good at this shit. Like, what the fuck's going on? So that itself lends credence to ideas of, okay, well maybe the government hit it with some weapon, and the army response to the crashes and how they knew where the crashes were is them knowing because they hit it with something. So they were able to track it, how they were tracking it previously when it quote unquote exploded. You know, the radar reports, all of that stuff is verifiable. There's that paper trail of all of these weird shit happening. And so there's some fun stuff. Now, there's some even funkier stuff. And it's this video. Which is technically a photo. Now, my belief in regards to how many different witness events on the 8th and the 7th as well, because there were multiple events like Mac's story was repeated quite a few times that night. Now, there's some funky actors in this story, and I want to give a shout out to this name because it's quite incredible. I have never imagined just naming my child this, and you know, I kind of have to think back. It's the olden time, you know, maybe, but like shit, I don't know. Would you name your kid Trudy Truelove?
Trudy Truelove?
Yeah, bro.
It doesn't sound too bad. I like the ring of it.
Trudy Truelove.
But
I
it
don't know,
sounds
man. I
like
think it's crazy fucking work. I'm not gonna lie.
it sounds like the parents were like hella romanticism, like into romantic shit.
True. I could see that. Well, she was also a witness. And what she witnessed was onto the side of a mountain. And that also had a debris field. And her response, army guys came in, swapped the whole place. They had to fucking hide so they wouldn't get in trouble. They got the fuck out of there. And, you know, they didn't see weird shit, but it lends credence to their shit falling out of the sky. And this is all in the same fucking week. What's going on here? Like, come on, these guys are all aces, man. They just came back from fucking Europe and Japan. Like, I mean, come on, dude. They've been doing it for 4 years now. Come on, man. They ain't falling out the sky, bro. It don't make sense. You know, there's so many holes in that idea. I just can't believe it for a second. And now, we're going to move into this video, all right, because I do want to move on with this. Well, I keep saying video. It's a photo, okay? This photo is of a crater from Roswell in 1947. There is no information about this, but we know it's 15 years old. It's been released. It's been out in the world for a while. Nobody knew about it. No ufologists, nobody. But one guy who had reported it in his book, the UFO Report. Now, there's so much in this photo that you can't really tell what the fuck's going on. But the one thing I do want to pay attention to is this bit that is at the top of your screen. You see where my cursor is, Nick? Are you watching the stream?
Yeah.
This weird shit. I don't know what it is, but it's fucking weird, man. All right? And now there's some other shit going on here. You see this?
It looks like some kind of debris, but the left side looks more intact. The right side, I'm not too sure of what that could be. The left side looks like part of a panel or a wing or some sort, but The right side, I'm not sure.
All right. For everybody listening, it's a huge crater. I would say this is probably about 30 feet, 40 feet. It's very deep. All right.
Like your
You
mother.
man, that thing is incredibly. There's one puncture point that is black, and it that white that you see there on that the side of that crater, that I believe is what would look like fuel burnt almost from or from that impact. The amount of heat, I believe that's what it would do to that kind of sand. I'm not sure. Sure, somebody's gonna correct me on this, but that is like a chemical change that happens from heat. So there is definitely a crash that happened here. It's fucking disintegrated, dude. There is nothing that is left from this but fragments. But that piece on the right, dude, I believe that is that is a gray, bro. That is very much a guy that got fucked up in his crash, bro. And he is stuck to his fucking seat.
Oh shit.
Yeah, bro. Eyes, his fucking head, his big ass fucking head, dude. I don't. He ain't got no fucking legs. Nothing's going on here, bro. He's just got a little fucking just dangle-lang going on there, just dangling. Maybe he's got his arm. I don't fucking know, but there's some weird, funky shit going on with that object on the right. And so this is 1947, Nevada. Some weird shit's going down, and so. The reason why this is so special is because this was recently uploaded to the National Archives. And it is very funky because, you could upload stuff to it, but it's just, why doesn't this have anything but aside the fact that we know it's from Roswell? Questions? If you guys know the answer, if you guys find this out, well, let me know, or I'll let you know. Well, and Nick, what do you know about the funky side of the airplanes we made back then?
Honestly, not much in that aviation time. I'm not really familiar about that.
I'm going to show you a behemoth. The best
Okay.
behemoth, in my opinion, that we have ever made. Look at this fat boy and tell me she ain't pretty. This is the YB-49. Now, what makes this so special, Nick? Do you notice anything weird about the video we just saw and the surface of this right here?
Well, where it's flying over it looks kind of suspicious. Other than that, that's really all I can think of.
You see these ridge lines right here?
Okay.
Follow me.
Um, is that crater picture after things were salvaged?
No. No,
Okay.
this is from the crash team.
Okay, yeah.
So they would
So
have done
it'd
this
be
before
as
stuff
is.
was touched.
Right. Okay. I What's the estimated wingspan
Listen,
for
bro,
this?
it's a big boy. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
All right? But here's the shit. That motherfucker comes out of the sky, bro. I don't know how much of that structure would survive just because of the crumple effect. Like, consider
Uh,
the amount of thrust. This thing goes over 500 miles an hour, right? You are just hauling ass, come out of the sky because you lose control at an angle, bro. Because consider the impact, right? There's an impact point here.
right.
It levels here. So this thing came angled, is what I'm saying. And that mark, the scorch mark, as I'm calling it now, with that white sand, essentially. Look, you could tell me that is what the sands look like over there, bro. But look, all of the other ridge lines, none of those are white out.
Now,
So
question.
that impact must have been harder over here than over there. So this is the point, is what I'm saying, right? I guess.
Since it's like a really zoomed in picture, it's hard to tell. Like it's just only one specific crater there. So it's hard to
Yeah.
picture everything else. I
Well,
can see
here's
it.
everything else. They had no craters. The True Love's incident was onto the side of a mountain, so there was fall off debris. There was the Mac situation. There was enough debris that he could scoot it out, right? But the big situations, as the Witkoff or the Wilton, I don't recall their name right now. That situation, that debris field, that's the one that they did have a lot of shit. So it could be this one, but we don't know. There's no information about that. This could be that incident, but there's a lot of stuff at this time that is flying that is very similar to this. These were flying around, and there were crashes of these. Of course, these failed. Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't an alien. I'm not saying that it was a prototype. All I'm saying is the government fucking lied their asses off for years, dude. And they fucking loved it. Oh my God, they fucking loved every minute of it. They were laughing their fucking asses off. All right, some of them were sweating, sure, because what the fuck's flying around? I don't think it's us, dude. Because you'll just eventually, as these incidents continue, right? You have so many of these incidents happen, guys, that it's truly unreal. There are thousands. Eventually, there's 3,000 plus events that get reported, get investigated, and there's an incredible number of them that can't be explained. And the incredible part about it is that some of them with the best video quality, best angles, couldn't be explained. We knew what we were looking at, but it cannot be explained. This is nowadays, ladies and gentlemen. So, if you are curious about this stuff, you know more about this stuff, please get in touch with me. You got answers? I want to hear them. Nick, you got any questions before we go out the door?
For right now, no.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a blast talking to you all. Nick, plug your pluggables, sir.
What's up, everybody? My name is Nick. I also go by the name Allforquan, ALLFORQUAN. I am an active social media type of person, so you'll catch me on every platform from TikTok, Twitch, IG, the vibes, under the same exact name. So appreciate you, Mike, for having me on here. As always, much love. Always talking to you, dog.
For sure. You guys have a good night. This is another episode of the Chug Life Podcast. You guys have a great one.